often provide a model for making it in America than his skills in government reveal the nation's political assumptions. However Americans remember Franklin, his accomplishments went well beyond his humble beginnings. He was the son of a devout Puritan Boston family, whose father, Josiah, originally planned for Ben to become a minister. Second thoughts led Josiah to apprentice his youngest son, and 15th child by 2 wives, to another son, James, for indentured service in a print shop. Disputes between James and Ben prompted the younger brother to run away to Philadelphia. After a few years of mishaps, which led to a year-long adventure in London, Franklin started his own printing business and eventually his own newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette. Over the next 2 decades, Franklin became a prosperous business owner and reliable neighbor. In his spare time, he formed civic associations, invented gadgets, experimented with nature, and proffered advice, time is money, that still instruct and inspire the children who read books like Now and Ben. By the 1750s, his leadership within the city catapulted him into Pennsylvania politics, at a time when the British Empire's holdings in North America were under threat. From the mid-1750s until his death in 1790, Franklin became the crafty statesman who negotiated first with the British and then the French to secure the agreeable outcome of American independence. His status as the eldest of the nation's founding fathers made his choice in 1914 for the $100 bill a sensible one. Prior to Franklin, the Treasury had used Abraham Lincoln for gold and James Monroe for silver certificates. As impressive as his accomplishments were, Franklin's religious outlook was apparently a peripheral part of his life. Since he grew up in Boston, all biographers have had to address whether Franklin's Puritan upbringing stayed with him. For most, the determination is relatively easy, since Franklin wrote a deistical tract when he was 19 that readily showed he had abandoned his parents' faith. Yet Franklin also repudiated his initial foray into deism, according to Brown University historian Gordon Wood, because metaphysical reasoning was useless. Wood adds that Franklin never accepted the Calvinist conviction that faith alone was the source of salvation, because his motto was that the most acceptable service to God was doing good to man. Even if Franklin never seriously considered Puritanism's doctrinal or liturgical requirements, he remained on good terms with believers of all stripes, from the evangelist George Whitefield to his devout sister Jane Meekham. Such a disposition suggests modest comfort with faith and the people who believed. According to Baylor University historian Thomas Kidd, the most recent biographer of Franklin, his Puritan upbringing prevented a turn to skepticism. Franklin's parents' intense faith kept him in the fold of a doctrineless, moralized Christianity. The problem with classifying Franklin's religious outlook is that, as Kidd observes, he wrote about Christianity more than any other 18th-century layman in the English-speaking world. The oldest founding father may not have waded into the deep waters of Christ's 2 natures, the Trinity, or biblical authority, but he left plenty of trails at every point in his life for historians to discern how Franklin negotiated questions of belief and unbelief. For some, he was a deist; for others, a polytheist; for still others, an inveterate opponent of religious intolerance; and for the remainder, a moralist. Most recently, the verdict of Kidd is that Franklin was a deist for whom the Calvinist creed of his youth prevented a complete rejection of orthodoxy. What stands out in discussions of Franklin's faith is something that applies to treatments of the man as a thinker. Because of Franklin's profile in the founding and his large set of writings, scholars have overestimated him as an intellectual who carved out a body of thought with clear hierarchies and boundaries. The same applies to efforts to characterize him as a specific kind of religious person. Franklin was an amateur polymath, with an endless curiosity about most areas of human existence. The attitude